Yo, what's up, everybody? We're back. It's House Divided on Orange Bloods Live. I'm Jeff Ketchum. That sexy mother right there is Chad Hastings. His middle name is Mother. No, it's not. I'm just kidding.
It'd be really cool if it was. That would be awesome.
Chad MF. What's your middle name? MF. Oh, really? No, it's just it's initials. It's a family name. You know, don't ask. No, nevertheless, like, comment, subscribe to the page. Do those things, please. If you're a Texas Longhorn fan and you're watching this video, why wouldn't you not like it? We're going to be talking about a couple of commitments, including one that went down just in the last 24 hours. A big one, too, if you're a Texas Longhorn fan. So why wouldn't you hit that thumbs up button? And by all means, jump into the comments. And normally we would tell you to jump into the specs chat, but we're not going to do that today. Just jump into the comments. Same thing. Chad, yesterday, Longhorns pick up a big commitment, and then we were talking about it, and it was like, hey, we didn't really talk about the last commitment either because of the timing of it. So let's talk a little Germaine Bishop out of Willis High School and a little Hayward Howard out of New Orleans. The Longhorns have a type. I think every school has great athletes as a type. And I think certainly when you talk about Germaine Bishop, the commitment that goes down this week, a guy whose stock has really soared across all of the recruiting networks over the course of this spring. He's one of the hottest prospects in the state. He's a family member of former Kansas State star Michael Bishop, who obviously was out of Willis as well. I thought that was a big announcement yesterday for the Longhorns, just to give you an idea of how high he's climbed. 24/7 has him ranked as a 5-star, number 25 in the country. On3 doesn't quite have him that high. Rivals has him as the number 159 prospect in the nation. ESPN has him at 177. He's a guy with a bullet going straight up. And again, he's a guy that he's a great athlete that can play on both sides of the ball. It is a little bit of the Travis Hunter comparisons, kind of that's too far. But I think when you start to see these Quan Cosby dual sides of the ball athletes, you're probably going to hear the Travis Hunter thing, but because Germaine Bishop is a guy that projects as a corner or a wide receiver or a special teams guy, I think it's an easy comparison in the last 12 months to make because of Hunter's profile. But, you know, that's some of the buzz that Bishop has been generating over the course of the last few months, and certainly his commitment yesterday.
Well, I definitely wanted to ask you about side of the ball, because as I was reading through notes, the instant analysis that Jason put on orangebloods.com, I got the sense he was thinking defensive side, but then I went to watch that highlight package, and in the first 2 minutes of it, there's one defensive side, and there's a lot of offense, and it starts with an incredible punt return that I would have put in there too, because it was incredible. For you, is he a defensive guy in college?
You know, it's funny. I watched Jalen Lott. And I am a lot more, he could play wide receiver or corner. When I watch Bishop, he's a little more corner for me. He's a little more DB, but it's a little bit of the same thing. You know, Quandre Diggs is another guy that's easy to think about. I remember his recruitment. I've told this story before when he was being recruited by Texas, that originally they were so unsure about whether or not he was going to be a running back or a corner that none of the position coaches fought to bring him as one of their guys because they were terrified that the other side of the ball would poach him. And if you were the running backs coach and you only had one running back offer or two running back offers in a class, and one of them was, and you were being talked into, use one of your numbers, the thought process at the time was that Dwayne Keenan was just going to come in and take him. So I think, like Diggs, I think you're just in a situation where I think this kid wants to try it on both sides of the ball. I think he thinks, one of the comments he made upon committing today is he doesn't want to be put in a box. He doesn't want to be framed in a cookie cutter kind of mold. And I think that's kind of exciting. I think the odds on will be he will eventually settle into one of these two spots. But I think that this is one of these situations where you can probably let him get on campus. If he really wants to do that, I'm sure they're telling him, hey, man, we'll give you a look on both sides of the ball. Why not? You're going to have guys like that will look at a guy like Travis Hunter and say, that I want to be that. Mm-hmm. And they're not going to go to the schools that tell them they can't. So I think that there's a little bit of, hey, man, we're going to let you, we will figure it out, but we're going to play you wherever you're the best. And I think that's what a guy like that wants to hear.
Yeah, and obviously the Bishop family, like you said, people know that name, Michael Bishop from the past, and now we're old enough that his son is a big time prospect. That's a whole nother topic, another discussion. A whole nother discussion is online poker, hijackpoker.com. If you haven't tried it out, well, try it out. As long as you're in the state of Texas, you can try it out. Texas Card House bringing you Hijack Poker. Thanks to Texas Card House for sponsoring the show each and every time. And thanks to Hijack Poker for taking the attention of Jeff Ketchum from time to time from the show and everything else and making his life better. Hijackpoker.com. So you mentioned the, I guess, second of the two guys, the defensive guys in the 2026 class that ended up committing. Bishop commits as the show premieres on a Thursday, and technically it happened on Wednesday.
And a couple days, man, just as a follow-up on the position thing, I think Texas is taking him leaning DB first. But the one thing we'll have to watch with him is physically. I think it'd be easier for him to go play receiver early on.
Right. Well, I was going to ask you, the first weight I saw listed was like a 155, and I saw as high as 170.
Yeah, I think he still got his developing physically. Yeah. And in the SEC, you got to be a big, strong, I think it would be easier for him to come in and make a first-year impact at wide receiver. He may need a little bit more physical development to take place before instant impact guy is there. And we're still a little ways away from that moment, but it is something to keep in mind, I think, is that we haven't seen a lot of cornerbacks come in at Texas and really, Malik Muhammad was kind of a year two guy. We're watching Kobe Black this year acclimate himself, kind of a year two guy. Even when you think about the safeties, I guess Derek Williams would have been a guy that did come in and play right away, but it took Jelani McDonald until year two last year to get on the field. We're seeing that with Xavier Filsaime and Jordan Johnson-Rebel. There are guys, and in part because of how well they recruit, really, that the depth they have at corner is so good. And you think about even this year at the wide receiver position, they were banged up enough that walk-ons were working out on the two deep. And we were saying things like, well, why is Ryan Niblett playing at third-team nickel when there are second-team slot receiver reps open? And it's just something to keep in mind that as that guy comes in, they may, I think, be leaning defense. But if that guy wants a taste on both sides of the ball, the easiest pathway to playing time is probably A, special teams, and then B, if a guy can make plays, he can make plays, and they get those dudes on the field. And his body kind of, the younger pictures of him will remind you of Xavier Worthy a little bit. If you looked at young pictures of Xavier Worthy, you'd go, oh my God, that guy looks like he's 14. Mm-hmm. But then he showed up on campus, 10 more pounds on Xavier Worthy made a big difference. And then sometimes you just can't hit what you can't catch. And that was always the key for Xavier Worthy. And this guy's got a little bit, not Xavier Worthy, believe me, I'm not throwing that out there, but as a potential playmaker, as you said, you've seen it on film, he's got some tantalizing ability with the ball in his hands.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. No doubt about it. All right, yeah, I was going to ask if you got any other thoughts on him, and obviously you just gave him there. Friend, we've talked about those June weekends, those big June visit weekends for Texas. June 6, June 13, June 20. Bishop is on the backside of that. June 20th, the official visit has been set for Germaine Bishop. So obviously a commit now, but also taking an official visit coming up in June. So Ketch, anything else on Bishop? We want to move on to Howard.
He's a guy to keep an eye on because he's so unique and his stock is on the rise. I'm just curious where it settles. That 24/7 made him a 5-star prospect is a big deal. In fact, how big of a deal is it? I forget exactly how On3 does their composite, but I know that On3 and the 24/7 component of that makes a big dent in it, in part because a lot of the guys that are now in charge of On3 were in the recruiting cycle were on the 24/7 side. So I think there's a lot of respect for what 24/7 does. The fact that he's number 10 in Texas on the On3 composite. And when you look at where he's ranked, ESPN's got him at number 21. Rivals has got him at number 21. On three has got him at number 45. So I'll be interesting to see where he goes up in their next set of rankings. But 24/7 has him as the number 3 prospect in the state of Texas. I got to be completely honest. I've not thought of Bishop as a 5-star. Okay. So I need to go back and really take a good look at, the 24/7 rankings, a total outlier right now.
Yeah.
Are they first on that, or is that a little bit of crazy talk? Because I've not watched him and thought to myself, oh, that's a 5-star prospect.
Right.
And you get into that territory and it's like, well, is he better than Felix Ojo? Well, no, I wouldn't go that far. Would you take him over Jalen Lott? I definitely wouldn't say that. So, I think I'm okay with the idea of him as a super blue chip prospect. I can kind of see that, but I'm going to have to really go back and I'm actually in the middle of my 2026 Lone Star Recruiting Rankings update. He'll be a guy that I give maybe more focus to than anybody else in the state because of that 5-star ranking. I will be looking for what did they see in ranking him as the number 25 player in the country that, On Three doesn't have him ranked nationally at all. Rivals has him ranked as number 159 nationally. ESPN's at 177 nationally. I think I'd previously been kind of in that range. So, but I haven't done a deep dive on Bishop in months. I did it once. I haven't updated the rankings in a while. So I see that and I just think to myself, I got to go back and take a look at that kid. So I think that's the thing. If there's one last thing I would say is, of any of the kids in the state of Texas right now that I'm working on with my recruiting update rankings, nobody do I want to do a deep dive into more than Bishop at this point, because there's no player in the state of Texas that has the extreme behind. One service has him as the number 3 player in the state, and another service, and one of the big dogs, right? On Three. Like, they just bought Rivals, and they're going to be the big network of them all when it's all said and done. And this will be really curious because when On Three and Rivals merge, Chad, On Three's high school recruiting rankings will become Rivals rankings. Mm-hmm. So there won't be an On Three recruiting rankings, but all of the On Three guys will merge with the Rivals guys. Like Adam Gordy just signed a deal with On Three.
Right.
So the recruiting guys are going to get together, and I think they're all going to say what I'm saying, which is, okay, well, what the hell's 24/7 looking at? And it's interesting to me that the Rivals guys are excited about him. They don't quite have him that high. The On Three guys have him as a kind of a basic 4-star prospect. Curious when the minds get together,
right?
They discuss that player, given that 24/7 has him sky high.
Yeah, that's interesting. One of the things I like to look at is the position itself, and he's listed by Rivals as the number 5 athlete in the country. So by that designation, the athlete designation, number 5 in the country kind of stands out to me.
One other thing that stands out.
Yeah.
Family, man. If this guy's name was Matthews and he was going to A&M, he could be a 2-star. And we would go, well, that's a Matthews.
Right.
He'll be a starter.
The pedigree.
Do not have to twist my arm.
The pedigree does matter, and his dad could perform on a football field.
Well, he's a guy that's got cousins. That's a athletic family. Yeah. And it goes beyond Michael Bishop. So that he comes with that kind of pedigree, to me, he's a guy with NFL type pedigree in his family. So I love to hear when guys have that kind of family pedigree. It's stark. It's such a stark contrast to how many of those guys, no matter what their rankings are, end up panning out versus the guys that don't. There's just a little something extra in the bloodlines that I can't completely explain it, but it literally transcends positions. It transcends sports. The moment that you hear, oh, that person's parents were just, oh, okay. And, yeah, it doesn't hurt that he has that. And again, there's a lot of boxes that I think this guy checks.
Yeah, no doubt. So Germaine Bishop is the second defensive player in the 2026 class to commit for Texas. The first one has a nice alliteration to his name. We will talk about him after we remind you about what to do if you want to drink. You want to go drink a little vodka? Go to the Deep Eddy Vodka Tasting Room, one of my favorite places on earth. The flavored vodka that will change your life. Have you had the pineapple yet? No? Well, get on out there. They're making cocktails with it. You can get a bottle of it if you want to. And depending on the weather, you can sit outside or you can sit inside. If the heat's going crazy, hey, go inside like I usually do and make sure to get some of that Crimson Creek Smokehouse barbecue to go along with those incredible vodka drinks at the Deep Eddy Vodka Tasting Room. It is oh so good. Now, if you can't get out to the Deep Eddy Vodka Tasting Room and you're busy, just go get some Deep Eddy vodka or anything else you need at Specs. Look out. Lisa's got friends and they're dancing.
Shop Specs! It's time to celebrate. Over 10,000 wines to appreciate. 300 beers, savings and cheers. Let's raise a glass to the next 50 years.
Specs, wine, spirits, and finer foods. World-class service, that's all about you.
Shop Specs! It's how we do. A huge selection since 62. Shop Specs! Low priced, amazing. Here's to you.
Shout out to Specs. Great acting.
Along, man. It's a jam when you just let it sink in.
That's it. That little take in the middle. It's just, she's amazing. She's my new favorite actress. Whoever she is, the brunette that they've put in those spots. She's incredible. All right. So Ketch, the first defensive guy to commit in 2026 for Texas, does have the nice alliteration. It's Hayward Howard. And also in the defensive backfield, and this is more primarily a defensive backfield guy, if I'm not mistaken. This is a corner for sure, correct? And we're talking a 6'2" corner?
Yeah, he's real Malik Muhammad, poor man's ish.
Okay.
He's kind of got the frame. 6'2", 170. He's not an elite athlete, but he has, he's one of these guys, quite frankly, when you look at him, you just know he hasn't played his best football, but he's got the frame. He is a good athlete, even if I wouldn't say he's the best athlete. He's not a guy that's interesting. If I'm being completely honest, I looked at this take and I wondered, does Texas think they're going up to 105 instead of 85? Now, on one hand, he's a top 10 prospect in the state of Louisiana. So just on the surface, that's a guy that you would always take. But I'm not quite sure that when I watch Howard, that I see a guy that's quite as elevated and as developed as some of the other high-level corners they've taken in the last few years. He's not, I don't think, the best athlete. He's an out-of-state guy, which, those guys don't get on the field early. Oftentimes, they're the first guys to hit the portal. It'll be interesting to watch because I think he's a guy that may need 2 or 3 years to develop. High upside. You can see the front. You can see what they're looking at. That guy hits, and his body comes along, and it all comes together. You can see that guy being an NFL corner.
Mm-hmm.
But he's a long ways away from that. And Texas is a difficult school to get on the field early. We've been talking about there are 5 stars that are taking till year 2, and there are 5 stars at safety that going into year 2, I don't know whether or not they even are going to have significant roles as sophomores. So, we talked about it. Look, we literally just had this conversation with Bishop. One of the things he'll have to battle is that he's coming into a position group that Texas has recruited at a nationally elite level, and they do every year. So I don't completely know what to think of Howard, in that when I watched this film, I wasn't blown away. There's not a lot of junior film available. So his sophomore film you see the most of, and that's not as good as his junior film. But to me, he's not a guy that they're taking off of film. He's a guy they will have seen in person. They'll have seen him this offseason. They'll have seen him work out. And I think they're projecting him to be better than he is. I think he's a little bit of a project. If you're going up to 105 scholarship-wise in the future, which is likely, I think, although we've not yet heard anybody on the The thing is, we've seen Sark and Texas start to do things, and then the SEC will do things later, and we'll go, oh, now it makes sense. They knew in advance that it was going to be like this.
Mm-hmm.
Even Sukamel mentioned it today at our team's channel that they're extending some offers at positions to guys that they're on one hand, it was just announced yesterday that one of the top linebackers in the country has decommitted, Xavier Griffin from USC. And now he sets up an official visit to Texas. So it's like, whoa. And you and I just did a show yesterday where we talked about it's really hard to pencil in or with ink what is going to be the guys in this class, because we know they're going to go out and get some big fish.
Right.
We know they'll go big sea fishing.
And they love to chase. And that, like you've always talked about, Sark has shown he loves to chase late.
And so here you go. You've got a guy, a 6'4", 205-pound linebacker out of Georgia who was committed to USC, who's visited Austin in April and is now going to take an official visit in June. And that's one of those guys that makes you go, oh, okay. Literally, 1st of May, you would have thought, oh, well, that guy, he's from Georgia, he's committed to USC. Probably not a whole lot there. And now you can close your eyes and say, that feels like maybe that's this year's Justice Terry, a guy that just kind of goes along floating. And the next thing you know, Texas has made their big move late. Or who knows, maybe he's blown away in June. But Texas is recruiting and I think landing punches in May with guys like that. I don't necessarily think of Hayward Howard like some of the new 3-star offers that we've seen come out, but Hayward Howard is a 3-star by other services.
Mm-hmm. Rivals has him as a 4, right?
Yeah, like Rivals has him as a 4, but others have him as a 3, if I'm not mistaken. And you look at this and you go, that guy is just an interesting take, because the talent is there, but at Texas, it's hard to find kids who are patient enough to be able to tell them, take your time. You're going to need a few years. Don't freak out. Don't leave. I don't think this will be a guy that would have cost a lot on the NIL side of things.
Mm-hmm.
So, while they're making their big runs, and I'm looking at it right now, On3 has Hayward Howard as a 3-star. 24/7 has him as a high 3-star. ESPN and Rivals have him as low 4 stars. Only ESPN at number 252 nationally has him ranked nationally, although the On3 industry ranking has him at number 372 nationally. Interesting enough, though, everybody has him as either the number 10, number 11, or number 12 guys in Louisiana. Now, do we think Louisiana is just in the middle of a bad year? Or is it possible that Louisiana is Louisiana and
they're 12 deep
on it, and the top 25 guys in Louisiana are always going to be top 25 guys in Louisiana, and we'll go, maybe in December there's 20 guys that are now, you know what I mean? Like, that's a state that's not going to stay at 10 or 11 guys in the 4-star range. It's Louisiana. So,
and that'd be one of my questions. Does LSU want him? That's always been one of my barometers for a Louisiana guy. Would LSU?
He has an LSU offer, and he's from. And one of the other things that you would also point to on this, if you're Texas, putting a flag down in New Orleans and putting a flag down at Edna Carr High School is not a bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
And Texas does want to have roots in those areas in future years, so you're building infrastructure in Louisiana and in New Orleans specifically. So the one thing I always say is, if there's a tie talent-wise, I usually prefer that Texas stay in-state. It's just less risky. You're more prone to keep those guys longer, although in this new age, maybe you want guys that aren't going to stay around as long. Unless it's in a territory where you want to build up infrastructure. So we've seen Texas go into California, De La Salle High School, things like that. When they make offers, you go, it almost doesn't necessarily matter specifically who it is. They just want a pipeline going for De La Salle. And I know that Texas would love to be able to take the best out of New Orleans every year. And you gotta be able to build up a foundation of having success with New Orleans guys to pull that off. And I think, I think they've done that. So I think Hayward Howard is a guy that is attracted to Texas because he knows he can go there and have success, but they also need to build that up. They're not done yet. And interesting. Again, I find him to be a wildly interesting guy because if they take 105 and that's where they're headed, so much about what they're doing right now, I think makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
There will be some that might look at this and go, does that mean that they think they aren't as hot to trot with a few other guys? I don't think so. It really makes me think because, Chad, the thing about next year is that the senior class is really small. So work with me here. They're at 84 right now. They're scheduled to lose 13. Okay. But presumably they might take one more to get up to 85, and maybe that guy's a senior, but let's just say 14 just to give them the benefit of the doubt. What do we think they're going to lose in the portal? I mean, probably somewhere between 15 and 20. I think the number this year is 16. But if you look at the high end of the SEC, that number gets high.
Yeah, up into the mid-20s for some teams.
But I would say safely, let's say 15 to 20, although there's 23 sophomores and 36 freshmen when you add up true freshmen and redshirt freshmen together.
Wow.
While it's hard to look at that list today and vote guys off the island, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
In a year from now, some of that clutter amongst those two classes is going to have to break up. And for instance, the sophomore offensive lineman at Texas right now at tackle, Brandon Baker, Andre Kojo, Trevor Gooseby, Jaden Chapman. I'd be shocked if next year, instead of having 4 sophomores, they might have 1 junior. Because you could see the winner of Baker and Kojo, the starter, staying. You could see the loser of that battle transferring. And you could see Jaden Chapman go, I just can't get on the field. And suddenly,
there's 2 guys. Yeah.
Right. And that's going to happen at all of the positions. They've got 9 freshmen and sophomore wide receivers. So I think we can safely say 15 to 20 departures through the portal. Let's go high end 20. If it's the low end and we gave them 14, then their incomings next year would be 29. That's where if they're taking 85, you're like, well, we know they're going to want to take about 10 guys in the portal, right? That's the new kind of Texas norm. Hell, they'll take 5 at defensive tackle if the last couple of years have been any indication. That's a little bit of a joke. I think we know that probably won't happen, but we're going to see the turnover of the roster. And 29, thinking that Sark likes to take a lot of high school guys, 20 is not the number that I think Sark wants to take from the high school ranks every year. But if you had 29 and you took 20, you could take 9 guys in the portal. And that almost doesn't seem like enough for either. But if that was what you were working with, again, that's where when you, I think, look at the commitment of a guy like Hayward Howard, it does make you go, interesting that they would take that commitment that early, because it would on the surface look like their numbers are tighter. But if they could take 105, suddenly they could, in theory, take 49 incoming players. Now, some of those guys will be walk-ons, but suddenly you can be real aggressive in terms of not having to worry about taking guys that are fringe guys.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying Howard's a fringe guy. I'm just saying as an analyst, I sit here and do the numbers crunching, and it is something that has crossed my mind. The idea that, man, if you're at 105 next year, like the Big Ten is working with, and not 85, so much. Think about that next year. And it could be they could take 49 incoming players if they just said, screw the walk-ons. Hell, they could take 40 and preserve 9. The numbers could be extraordinary next year in terms of incomings. We don't even know what it really looks like in the Big Ten right now because they're not done. They're just, and they don't know that what Nebraska has told the Nebraska walk-ons. Hey, man, just show up. We don't even know what our numbers are going to look like. We may keep 0 walk-ons,
Right, because they're living in a world where they think it's 105.
Yes.
Right. And we don't even know if there's a point in time. Like, is there a point in July or August when it's going to officially be that? We don't know that either.
Well,
right?
We know, I mean, it really depends on the settlement. So
yeah,
there's still, boy, I got to tell you.
You mean the
settlement doesn't go through, Chad?
Right. You mean the one that was going to be announced in April, right? We're recording the show in mid-May, and the one that was coming out in April. That's the one you're talking about, right? That we're still waiting on.
Let me get a calculator out, Chad, real quick. How many Power 4 schools are there?
Geez.
Is it like 60?
60 was be my guess. Because it used to be.
Let's take the top 60 NIL schools, okay?
That's a fair number, I think.
Now, each of them are going to spend approximately $17 million of settlement money on NIL. It won't be NIL, though. It will just be distribution of TV money or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how much money that is? Seriously.
That's a ton.
That is, if my decimal is correct, you're talking about $102 million. Wait, where's that? I got so many damn numbers on the calculator. Hold on. It's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. What is it when you have 7 zeros and then 3 more that follow? That's $1 billion, Chad.
That's a lot of money.
That's $1.02 billion.
Good grief.
That's a lot of money. I've had numerous people tell me, don't even joke that the settlement doesn't happen.
By the way,
when we talk about Texas spent like $40 million in NIL.
Yeah, 60.
That's included in 17.
67 on a quick count, Catch, and if you add Notre Dame, that'd be 68. 68 teams.
So more than $1 billion, Chad, of money.
More than that.
I don't think people understand the totality of the dollar figures that we're talking about. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And that is not all of it. That's the settlement money that's designated for football. So crazy times. And yeah, so all of that is, I'm just throwing it out there. If that settlement doesn't go through, college football is in trouble because so many checks are being written with accounts that haven't been set up yet, technically.
Yeah.
Technically, legally. So just FYI.
There you go. All right. Rolling through a Thursday show. We're glad you're with us on House Divided. One more bill to pay in this show, and it is Taste on Main. If you're looking for a great little steakhouse with a good casual feel, it's waiting on you in downtown Buda. These are the same people that bring you Hay City Store, and you've heard us talk about Hay City Store for a long time. This is the steakhouse that they've got, and it is awesome. I've done an anniversary dinner there. I've done their brunch Saturdays and Sundays, 10 to 3, if I'm not mistaken. Double check me on that. Make sure you get your reservation because it is a popular place for a reason. The food is incredible. The beignets are awesome in that brunch. I love the whiskey drink, the Sam Elliott's mustache. You've heard me talk about that. And if you get a steak, maybe think about getting it Oscar style. Be sure to ask him about that. And be sure to tell him you heard about it on Orange Bloods Live. Tell Travis, Tamara, and the crew that we said, hey, when you go to Taste on Main. All right, talking recruiting, talking the commits in the 2026 class, these 2 defensive commitments. And as you just heard, Ketch talking about that settlement still looming in college football. Anything else on Hayward Howard? I think I had a question for you, but I'm not sure if it still applies. But anything else you wanted to throw out on Howard?
No,
I guess I was going to throw you a question about Orfe. I'm not sure if it's still appropriate, but I was going to ask about these 2 decisions, these 2 commits. In some of the notes Jason's had on it, and he and I have discussed it on the recruiting, hour show as well. I get the sense he's gotten some comments from, I think it was Howard, that made a comment about maybe Coach Joseph wasn't super high on me, but then Coach Orfe was. And so I just kind of wonder about the statement this is making from Orfe himself, because this is obviously his first cycle, coaching, but obviously his first cycle recruiting DBs.
It's probably too early to know if it's an indication of a type.
Yeah.
I would say what's interesting about it's a good question, Chad, because I called him kind of a poor man's Malik Muhammad. And I don't think behind the scenes they think they've gotten out of Malik Muhammad what they hope to get. And there had been, I don't want to completely go down the Malik. I don't want to turn this into like Malik Muhammad isn't good enough because, he's a projected first-round draft pick by Pro Football Focus. So he's a guy that started on a team, went to a national semifinal a year ago. So he's really good. But if the bar is trying to get multiple Jahdae Barrons on the field or first or second round kind of guys, I don't think they think he's that. Because I think they know he's not an elite of the elite athlete. I think what's interesting about Hayward is that Hayward Howard, I'll probably do that. It just happened.
It is a very unique name to say. 2 last names put together. It's kind of tough. You got to train yourself on it.
Well, and I had that with my son.
Yes, exactly. So, right. And then when you do the alliteration, which you don't have with your son, you add another layer because your brain doesn't want to do I was about to say your son's name. No, this is
exactly
Hayward, right. This is Hayward Howard. It's just tough to get your brain to do it.
That he profiles like Malik Muhammad stylistically because of the size and because you don't watch him and go, wow, what an athlete. At least when compared, Jahdae Barron's kind of a super athlete, Mm-hmm. We never thought necessarily until last year that he'd been a super player. But as an athlete, there weren't any numbers that he posted that at the combine that you went, whoa, really didn't see that coming from him. It was like, oh, yeah, no, the Thorpe Award guy that was a total badass on the field. Guess what? He was a badass because he was a super athlete in part. And again, the Howard one is an interesting thing for me because right now we're watching them trying to upgrade the talent level at that one corner spot. If they could, they would. And we saw them go after Jabbar Muhammad, ironically enough, in the portal 2 years ago. That dude wasn't beating out Jahdae Barron had he come to Texas and competed for a starting position. I think a lot of people thought when they did that would have been a Muhammad corner pairing. But I think we now know 12 months later, well, shit. Jahdae Barron was going to start on the outside. He was their best guy.
Yep.
And then it would have been Muhammad versus Muhammad on the other side. And if that happens, does Malik Muhammad even stay at Texas? So there's an interesting sliding glass windows kind of thing that happens there. But again, kind of stream of conscious thinking on the Howard thing. But from a player profile standpoint, again, I think he's a little bit of a project. And I've got some questions.
Yeah, noteworthy that these are Orfe's first 2 guys in this
for sure
recruiting class. 7, I believe, is the total now for Texas in the 2026 class. If I'm not mistaken, a couple defensive backs are the last couple. Anything else to hit, Ketch? Are we ready to close up?
Sayonara.
Sayonara, baby. Thank y'all for liking, subscribing, and getting your notifications, jumping on in to the comments. And thank you to Jeff Ketchum for recording shows when he's supposed to be taking time off. Damn it, Jeff Ketchum, go take some time off.
We've got to remind everybody that Liverpool are the champions.
I knew you were here for a reason, and I knew it wasn't necessarily just to hang with me because you can do that anytime. It was to mention Liverpool. So there you go.
Hold on.
They are the champs. Oh, no. What do we got?
You see the captain up there?
Lord, there it is. Okay.
It's not working. There we go.
God, are you trying to make us vomit? What are you doing?
Captain, why is that other frame crooked? I got to fix that. I don't know.
I have no idea. All I know is I feel like I need to take some
busy. I'm sorry, Chad.
I feel like I need to take some Pepto is what it feels like now.
Remind everybody that like Virgil van Dijk is the captain of the champions.
Yeah, they are the champs. They are the champs. Ketch will remind you a lot about that. Ketch, enjoy whatever time off you get this week. I will talk to you next week. Thank you all for liking, subscribing, getting the notifications and all that good stuff. And coming up tomorrow, if you're watching us on Thursday, coming up tomorrow on a Friday, there'll be some sort of show at noon. It'll be called House Divided. I'll be a part of it, and we'll see what else we can throw together. Until then, y'all take care. It's Orange Bloods Live. See ya.